pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stay standing while we remember those who have passed. Leonard Frank Lowe, Anne Marie Sagan, Clements DeWitt Stanton Jr., Carl Henkel, Dorothy Stickles, Keith A. Casey. Roll call, Mr. Briggs.
Present.
Gasolino.
Here.
Buckwalter.
Here.
Cassie's 4.
Here.
We have a full board tonight. Fire exits are behind me. Don't use the elevator. Correspondence. We're going to go into the Wawarsing Water Ordinance, Water District Ordinance, Local Law Number 2 of 2021, public hearing at this time, correct?
Move to open.
Mr. Briggs makes a motion.
Second.
Roger seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So anyone in the audience or on Zoom that has concerns about the Wawarsing Water District Ordinance?
I'll move to
Close the public.
close.
No, we're going to continue it until next month.
Close for now.
We're going to continue until the next meeting,
The 18th.
which is what day?
October
November 4th.
The 4th. Second.
Okay.
We have to vote on that?
All in favor?
Yes.
All in favor?
So, yes, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion is carried.
Oh, you can go to.
We'll start with the public hearing.
Want to do the petitioners now, Terry?
It might take longer for a while. I don't know.
We can start it, and 7:10 we have to stop.
We can have the petitioners, but we have to stop at 7:10 to have a public hearing, so. Petitioner? Yes.
Good evening. I stand before you in my capacity as the mayor of the village of Ellenville. October always seems to be the favorite month of residents in the village of Ellenville because it's the one month where town candidates treat village residents the same as people outside the village, because village residents have the same one vote per person that town residents do outside the village. Once October passes, it seems that the people, and this is not this board, this has happened since I've been the mayor, forget that village residents are town residents and they're paying the same town tax, except for some of the highway taxes, that every town resident does. Instead, I find, in most cases, village residents subsidize the work of the town outside the village. One area in particular I want to bring to your attention is the parks, because there is no park in the village that isn't a town-wide park. Burn Road is used by all town residents. The Steckle Park golf course used by all town residents. In fact, if you did a count, you'd find that many more residents outside of the village who live in the town play there. And yet, when it comes to paying for improvements at any of the town parks outside of the village, I pay as a village resident for those improvements, but people outside of the village don't pay for the improvements in the village parks that are really, again, town parks. So, for example, Burn Road needed some blacktop work. We asked the town if they could help out. They were busy. We had to pay $16,000 from the 4,000 people who live in the village to do that blacktop work. But if it was Lippman Park that needed it, I'd be paying for that. So I asked the candidates, and I asked the town board to please keep in mind what a village is for. It's for density issues. Things like parks are not density issues. Those parks are town-wide parks. We asked for some help doing the parking lot at the Steckle Park. It still hasn't been done. For us to do it, it's going to cost us over $45,000, again, village taxpayers, and it's just not right. the town should be assisting at very least in these parks, and we're not getting any support. So it's not a question of the village not getting along with the people on the town board. I get along with everyone on this town board, and all my members do. But it's a question of recognizing that village residents are town residents, and the village is part of the town, and that town taxes should be used to make improvements within the village. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Other petitioners?
I have a statement I'd like to read. Thomas knows it.
Sure.
Back in August, this board passed a resolution allowing the Coombs to hold illegal weddings without the threat of the town stopping them. Not only did they have these weddings, but the resolution that was passed allowed them to do them carte blanche, no rules, no guidelines. So since then, here's what's transpired. Barn doors wide open during the weddings. Booming music, some of the loudest it's ever been. Guests playing in the front yard where everything was supposed to be kept in the barn. Beer trucks parked in the front yard with people sitting at the bar. Partying all night long, Friday night until 2 a.m. at 509 Ulster Heights Road, and 4 a.m. at Wager Farm. Wedding setups 3 days prior to the wedding day. 41 cars parked in a parking lot designed and approved for 25. Phil said to a neighbor, and I quote, "I guess they snuck a few in on me." Groups of 15 to 20 people outside the barn, yelling and screaming for hours. So what are we supposed to do? Call the police, right? Police were called 5 times. They didn't come. The troopers were called. They said to call the Ellenville Village Police because they have no idea what the town noise ordinances are. At the last wedding, my neighbor Brett called the sheriffs and they finally arrived at 10 p.m. When they showed up, I went down the bottom of my driveway to talk to the sheriff and ask him how to get a copy of the report from the last time that he was here. When I was talking to the sheriff, I was verbally harassed, cursed at, called names, you name it, by all the guests standing in the front yard. I asked the sheriff if this was okay. He said no, and he didn't agree with it, but there's nothing he can do because they weren't threatening me. So my question to you is, so I guess it's okay for all of us to stand in front of your houses, scream at you, degrade you, and there's nothing that you can do about it because I'm not threatening you. And remember, you guys and the building department told us to call the police. Ever since we filed a lawsuit against Phil and Patty Coombe, their guests no longer trespass on George Lawrence's property to go between the houses. Now, the guests, after partying all night long, walk up and down Ulster Heights Road in the middle of the night, no streetlights. It's just a matter of time before one of them gets hit by a car and killed. So here's a fun fact. August 27th, John Graffio, myself, had a meeting with Phil and his brother. At that meeting, Phil said, and I quote, "I had nothing to do with the resolution. The town contacted my lawyer. This came from the town." So basically, all this time, when we've been told by the town and the building department to file complaints, show proof, it's been an absolute joke. This was purely done for the election, that resolution. Because if it was really done in good faith, you would have made him hold his proposed event plan, which never even came up in the conversation. I have made formal complaints to the building department and to be told by Robin Coleman that it's not her problem. It's your problem, the board. So my question to you is, if it's not the building department's problem, the police won't come, the board just lets things happen when and wherever they want. How is a Wawarsing resident what are we supposed to do when we want to enjoy our property and live our life? That's the question we've been seeking for months and months. I guess, like myself, my neighbors, they're going to have to spend tens of thousands of dollars and sue the town as well. And for everyone that has an opinion on this and thinks that we're all wrong for trying to defend our properties and homes, maybe you should hold off on throwing that stone, step outside your glass house, take a look around your neighborhood, because this can happen to you too. There's lots of barns, lots of garages, lots of things out there where any of you guys can just deem to go ahead, have an event. None of you deserve to make decisions that affect anyone in this town's life. All right? And for those of you running for re-election, I hope that people see through you and vote you out.
Tom, can I have a copy of that?
Yeah.
It's public hearing time.
We're going to do petitioners again, but we have to do public hearing.
1 minute, okay. My name is Peyton, obviously, you guys, what? You said I got 1
She
minute?
can go, she
No.
can go. We can search the public hearing, so.
Yes or no?
We're gonna continue the public, or the petitioners after our public hearing because the public hearing is slated for 7:10.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Purpose of the public hearing is to receive input and comments from regarding the draft zoning changes to the town of Wawarsing zoning codes and the draft local law of 2021. So, TJ makes the motion, Roger seconds it, public hearing is open.
This is
The public hearing is open for the zoning.
This is for the zoning,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, good.
In June, I approached the town board at a town board meeting.
Yeah.
Should I keep on going?
Yeah.
Regarding the special use event law that the board approved in December of
You have
2020.
Facebook, you said?
I spoke with the law and how it encompasses the majority of the town.
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Hold on a second.
Just mute them all.
I clicked on the link.
Just mute them.
Um,
It's the one that's the A, Cassie.
I'm looking up that, and it's on the,
Just mute it.
huh?
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
I spoke with the law and how it encompasses the majority of the town, including residential and rural areas and the potential impact the event venues could have on neighboring property owners. The town board is currently reviewing and revising a section of the zoning code. And I would like to ask the zoning committee and this town board to review and make alterations to this law while you have this public hearing open and you're considering zoning changes. I have researched several towns and this is what I have found. The town of Saugerties does not have a special event law and does not permit these types of businesses to operate. They have one incident where a property owner started to hold events in a barn. The neighbor brought it to the attention of the building department. They placed a stop work order on that property owner. They will look into creating a law and it will include setbacks for neighboring properties. The town of Rochester, you need approvals are given on a case-by-case basis and applicants must go before the zoning and the planning board for approval. The town of Ulster, special use permits for events are allowable in certain zones. Applicants must go before the planning board. If the applicant is requesting a special use permit in a zone that is not permitted, they need to go before the zoning board to seek a variance before going before the planning board. The town of Lloyd, special use permit is allowed in certain zones. It is allowed in a zone. If it is allowed in a zone, the applicant must go before the zoning board and then the planning board for approval. I've researched other towns as well with similar results. I won't read all of them. So again, I am asking that the town board review the special use law as it does not protect areas in the town that have neighboring properties in close proximity. Other towns have more stringent requirements and the town law as written does not protect the property rights of its tax-paying citizens. I also would like to bring to the attention of the board, because I know that the zoning is going to be done for the Airbnbs, which also affects us. My husband and I own a property in Lake George. I called the building department of Lake George because we were considering renting it out as an Airbnb. I was told, no, we cannot rent it out as an Airbnb because their laws do not let Airbnbs in residential zones. They're only allowed in commercial zones, commercial residential zones, and that's it. So again, I asked this board when you're reviewing that section of your zoning to take into consideration that there's probably properties that shouldn't be considered to be Airbnbs. And I know, speaking to a bunch of residents, especially in Cragsmore, there's a lot that's going on up there and they're not happy about it. Thank you.
Mr. Kaplan?
Good evening again. I am here on behalf of a number of camps that are doing business in the town of Wawarsing. I've started my presentation to you by handing out to you a very thorough review of the law that was prepared by the Storzer and Associates law firm in Washington. by one of the associates in that firm, Eric Train. I would urge you to, at very least, take a look at it before you make a final decision. I want to start by giving you what I believe is an appropriate way to resolve this thing. I understand that the board feels they have to move forward tonight because the Nevele and Cresco are at stake and you don't want to do anything to compromise that. There is nothing that would prohibit you from voting on portions of the zoning law and not other portions. What you can't do is you can't change sections of this zoning law without going back. But you don't have to pass this whole thing. You can pass a resolution tonight that incorporates all of the zoning changes other than the camps without going back anywhere. Only if you said, well, I want to change the 50 feet to 25 feet or the 75 feet to 35 feet, you have to start over. You can save this town a lot of money and a lot of money for a lot of people in this room if you simply just say, we'll vote on everything but the camps, we'll leave that issue open, we'll meet with the camps, and we'll see if we can hash this out. I think this is a very clear path to what this is going to cost the town if you move forward and pass this zoning ordinance as it's now affecting the camps. I did want to go over a few other things because you're going to hear this if you do pass it when you get into court. This started back in June of 2020. At that point, the camps opening up for that summer after the COVID decided they were going to do day camps because that's what they were authorized to do. And this town decided that regardless of what was allowed at the state, they were not going to allow any day camps. And they brought court action. Ulster County Board of Health didn't agree with you. They issued the permits to have day camps here. The court didn't agree with you to get a restraining order to close down the camps. Their only interest was the health of the kids. And as the summer went on and no one was getting COVID, they allowed it to continue. I don't know if all of you were involved with this, but clearly after the summer, not satisfied with what the court did, a moratorium was put into effect almost immediately. No site plan, no construction, clearly limited or viewing the camps and what they could do while you figured out a way that you could stop them from doing anything. So I gave you some of the things that we had problems with last meeting. But really, ultimately, what it comes down to is this. You're putting into place what's called a camp overlay. You can call it an overlay, you can call it a camp overlay, I call it a ghetto. And the reason it's a ghetto is that you've taken the RU district, you've taken a very small portion of that RU district, and you said, here camps is where you can be. And we're going to put a couple of other rules in there. I told you about the 250 foot rule that you have to be in. How's this? 70 feet from the road, a minimum of 70 feet, not the 250, 70 feet, every camp must build a fence that's non-transparent around the camp so that none of the neighbors can see it. Does that sound like Warsaw, Poland during World War II? Let's fence them around, let's make sure no one can see them, and that's how we're going to do. So 70 feet in, we're going to have this fence, and then for the next 180 feet, you're not going to be able to do anything anyways. No parking, no sporting events, nothing within that. 250 feet in, 70 feet of fence, 250 feet in. Outrageous, quite frankly. And if you think you can justify it after reading this, then you're not reading this. In addition to that, just as a couple of other things, so every 3 years after a camp gets a special use permit, the building department is required to go in and to review that special use permit. Now, your law calls for a public hearing. It's unclear to me who's holding the public hearing. Are you now going to have because it doesn't say the planning board, it just says a public hearing. So now the building department is holding public hearings, it sounds like, because that's what the law is. Very fragmented, not really thought out. In fact, in one portion of the law, you refer to the Board of Health in Sullivan County, not Ulster, Sullivan County, and you have to follow the same rules and regulations in Sullivan County Board of Health in the town. I'm sure it was by mistake, but again, just thrown in from some other statute. You also indicate in this that even if you're not in the ghetto areas that we've picked out, if your camp is in some of these other areas, don't worry. You can still apply for a special use permit if you want to expand, or if you want to rebuild something, but you're still going to be subject to the non-conforming portion of the statute. And the non-conforming portion of the statute has a very interesting section. It says very simply this: the non-conforming use shall adhere to the same standards, but under no circumstances shall it be expanded, or shall the density or intensity of the use be increased beyond what exists presently. So basically what it's saying is if you follow the non-conforming use provisions, you can't expand any existing camp that's not already within those limited ghetto zones that you've set up in this statute. So again, I think that we have a very easy solution to this. Pass the zoning law, get the Neville rolling, get Cresco rolling, and stay out of federal court by just simply saying we're going to leave the camp issues open. You pass this thing as it is, tomorrow this law firm is on its way in federal court. Thank you.
Any other comments? Sure. State your name, please.
My name is Asher Handler. I'm a local resident in Mappinac, and most of my family's income comes in from the camps. And if you do anything to harm the camps, it'll harm me personally. And I do not like living on, public assistance. And it's one of the things that I've not been doing. I'm proud of that I don't do. And I would appreciate it if we don't do anything that affects my income.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Coleman. I appeared before you last week. I represent Camp Rock House, and I joined in Mr. Kaplan's excellent presentation as to why we believe this would be very detrimental to the town of Wawarsing. And I just want to point out a few things. We believe that this is discrimination, and it will be hurting all the camps, especially allowing only children in a bunk, to have bungalows 75 feet apart, to make rules and guidelines and purposely skip many camps with overlays of civil rights violation, we believe, as outlined in that letter. And it looks like the only thing involved in this close to 300-page proposal is hurting the camp. We would ask why the town of Wawarsing has violated the Supreme Court judge of the camp as a religious matter and issue a ruling that camps and schools are no longer be treated as a house of worship. Mr. Kaplan mentioned the 200 feet from the property line. We believe that's discrimination as well. None of the camps were notified to attend any of the board meetings regarding to these many important changes will change the entire camp industry and demographics in the town of Wawarsing. Why was this done? I don't know, but it seems to me that it should have been notified if it was affecting them to this great extent. It is our request, as Mr. Kaplan did, that the proposal will continue with the Beverly and Old Channel Master proposed projects, and that they be separated and pass those, if that's your intention. We again emphasize that nowhere is it mentioned in the town proposal budget this will probably cost the town around probably $500,000 in a legal battle when a lawsuit against the town are commenced. And it's likely the town will lose, and the changes and restrictions of camp will be found discriminatory and civil rights violation. Who's going to pay this $500,000? That's an estimate, but it's going to be paid by all the taxpayers in the town of Wawarsing. And it will cost them additional taxes, and probably, I don't live in the town of Wawarsing, but it'll probably be substantial. So again, we would request, as Mr. Kaplan requested, to pass whatever is necessary outside these camp regulations, and that the camp be further negotiated between the board and the camps to arrive at something that's comfortable for everybody. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Rabbi Heft from Camp Imuna. Before I share my own words, I'd like to share words from my friend Jimmy McKeever from Sunshine Acres and Sportsman's Road. Unfortunately, tonight they had a board meeting for their organization, and therefore he could not come tonight, and he plans on sending a letter on behalf of the organization to the town board. Their organization has been in existence helping children find the knowledge of God for 111 years. They've been in the town of they've been in Napanack for since 1961. And they give children the opportunity to lift up their lives and give them opportunities in general through the knowledge of God. They oppose any laws that will prohibit them from performing their operations as a camp and something that may challenge their tax-exempt status. And I believe you'll be getting a letter from him soon. On a personal note, through unfortunate circumstances, I had the opportunity over the last few weeks to reach out to a few town board members, and it was a pleasure to meet you, and I appreciate you giving me the time from your busy schedule to discuss some of the issues at hand. Needless to say, it would have been a lot better and easier if we had these meetings 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months ago. We could have sat down over a cup of coffee and discussed some of those issues. But having these conversations, I feel that maybe some of the town board members do not fully understand what a summer camp is and what we do, and therefore I turn to, as individuals, as a group, if you'd like to come for a tour of Camp Imuna at any time and day, I'm happy for you to come and take a tour of our camp. Of course, camp is not in session, so you may not get the spirit of what the campers do on a daily basis, but you'll definitely be able to see the campgrounds and see what we're trying to do for our children. Secondly, having many conversations with community members, community leaders, and town board members, it appears to me that much of that is contained in these laws that people are not familiar with. And even some town board members maybe fully not understand the impacts and the negative impacts of the details of these laws. Therefore, once again, I ask you and request of you and beseech you to vote no tonight to the zoning laws, or at least cut out the camps and rather work it out amicably than everybody wasting a very long time and a lot of money, which is totally unnecessary. With respect to all the council in the room, let them find their way to pay their college tuition for their kids another way. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Is there anyone else?
There may be somebody on Zoom, I believe.
Yeah, he's on Zoom.
Could you unmute, Eric?
Wait. We've got 2
Good
things.
evening, everybody. My name is David Rosenberg, and my father was the founder of Camp Raftal. We came to the town of Wawarsing in 1954, trying to establish camps for poor, needy, and underprivileged children. All the years, close to 70 years, we have been in the town of Wawarsing. We've always worked together with the building department, with the town, with any office of the town to try to see to have all our camps in the best interest of everyone. We are here only for one purpose. We're trying to help poor and needy children. We're trying to upgrade children who come from broken homes, orphans, and other problems. That's our goal, and we devoted our lives, all the years, all our families have struggled all our lives to try to help those needy children. Therefore, we came here. We was not notified. Usually, when we deal with the health department or any other department, we are being told a year, 2 years ago, this law may come in. If you have any objections, let's see what you have in mind. Come down with your lawyer, with your superiors. and let's discuss it. That's how it worked all the years. In every aspect, we rebuilt most of the camps. We made advanced plans and preparations. We have been shocked this summer, late in the summer, that we heard from somebody that's coming new changes to the camps. We was not notified from the town by any letter or by any notice that there may be some changes coming. If you have anything to comment, come in and comment. If you have any objections, come in. If you have any thought, if you want to discuss something, come in. You are welcome. We have not been told this. We worked our lives, all this to try to help. All of a sudden, we felt that the whole mountain fell on our heads, fell on our bodies to try to see, to eliminate what we are doing here in the town of Wawarsing for close to 70 years. We appealed to the town board that we have very good relations all the years. We never had a problem. It was a minor issue. We always tried to solve the problem with the best of our ability. And we asked the town, we asked the respect of the town, please, if the town wants to vote about 300 houses in Everly, it's appreciated. If they want to vote about the 500 acres for the marijuana, it's appreciated to bring in business in the town. But what this has to do in conjunction together to have the camps violate, to have a bunk in a camp, 10 children, when the state of New York says you can have 36 children in a bunk. The state of New York say you have to have 40 or 50 foot per square feet for a child, and the town of Wawarsing comes and says you have to have 125 square foot. I've been in Albany several times, 10, 15 years ago, by discussing at that time. Well, they came with the doctors from professional to see how many air circulation you have to have for a child. If the state of New York says 40 square foot, why is the town coming for 125 square foot? There's no reason for it. Legally, there's no reason for it. Healthy, there's no reason for it from the state of New York Health Department. The same thing as other things that's listed in the book, one after the other one. For example, if you have 70 foot, 75 foot apart each one from the other one, how can you have in the night time 10 children sleeping in a small area? If they need any help, if they need any attention, whatever they need, they have to run in the darkness 70 foot from one place, from one building to the other building. What this has to do with the 300 houses that they want to build in Nebula and with the 500 acres. We appreciate the 500 acres at the Nebula. But what this has to do in conjunction together, to combine this together. We feel that this is harassment. We're trying to work with the town. We don't want to hurt the town. But in other words, we cannot see hundreds and hundreds of poor and needy children should be hurt, and we should tell them you cannot come and enjoy the environment in the upstate New York, the environment the children live in all year in the slum city area in the city. They have no parks in our area where the children live. They have no place where to go out. They're closed in a closed circumstances all year. The only time they have the ability to breathe and to enjoy from the fresh air is the time they're coming out in the summer. What is the town of Wawarsing doing something now to hurt these children? Why those children who come from broken homes have to suffer? What this has to do with the 300 building that you want to build in the Nebula? As Mr. Kaplan said before our attorney, the same thing our attorney did for Washington. This is two separate things. You can vote for the 300 house in Nebula, no problem. You can vote on the 500 acres for the marijuana. But the strike or eliminate the camps, it doesn't work together as two separate issues, two separate items. We appeal to you, please, open your heart, help us, help our children, help our future generations, please. Don't hurt us. We appreciate that the town is trying to help us. We don't know what transpired. But we hope that and we pray that the town of Wawarsing should help as before, and we should be able to do in the future for the future generations to continue to go from strength to strength. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Well, let Eric get in.
Gentlemen on Zoom,
Are you unmuted? You can speak.
Did you just recognize me?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, thank you. I'm Eric Green, the law firm of Strozer and Associates in Washington, D.C., and I appreciate your giving us the time to speak briefly tonight. We are working with Mr. Kaplan, representing several camps in Wawarsing. We've submitted a letter to you, which you now have. I do not want to take up your time repeating everything that's in that letter, but I just would like to highlight a few things for you to focus on when you have a chance to read this. First, we believe that if these zoning amendments are passed as written with regard to camps, you will be violating both federal statutory law and the U.S. Constitution. With regard to the statutory law, we cite the law there, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, or RLUIPA. There are 3 provisions of RLUIPA. There are 5 total, but 3 that would be applicable in your case. One is it says no government may impose a substantial burden on religious exercise. What does substantial burden mean? It's more than an inconvenience. Someone having just some increased costs or having to follow reasonable regulations are not substantial burdens. But the courts of New York, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, which we cite, in a case called the Westchester Day School involving a Jewish day school, held that zoning actions that limited the size of a Jewish day school that wanted to expand and which limited the types of activities that it could do imposed a substantial burden, creating RLUIPA liability. In this case, the setbacks, which we view as unreasonable, the separation between dorms, the number of dorms being limited, and the hard cap on the number of campers would be a substantial burden. And we also want to highlight, this is in the letter, that the U.S. Supreme Court in the Brooklyn Diocese v. Cuomo case decided in November 2020 involving the code of restrictions specifically rejected the idea of hard caps, where there were hard caps on religious institutions, but not on hardware stores, food stores, and so forth. There was no differential for the size of the religious institution. So there's no differential for the size of the camp, the acreage that it occupies. That itself is both a RLUIPA violation and a constitutional violation. So that's the first prong of RLUIPA. The second one at work here is discrimination. This is one that courts look at the history and the context. History here being the history of the lawsuit that went up to the appellate division, finding that religious camps were religious places of worship. This is any reasonable observer would see this as a response to that. That is a suggestive that this is intended to reverse that and limit religious camps within Wawarsing. Third, there's a provision in RLUIPA saying that you must give religious assemblies and institutions, so by the way, not just religious places of worship, but assemblies or other institutions, you must treat them at least as well as other assemblies and institutions. So however you treat membership clubs, schools, hotels, colleges, universities, other things where people gather, if you have more onerous restrictions on a religious institution like a camp, that violates the equal terms provision. I won't go into any further detail than that. These are the 3 main areas that we highlight that are both RLUIPA violations and U.S. constitutional violations. We urge you to review these carefully, have your attorney review this letter carefully before you make any decision that would restrict camps in the way that you have proposed in these zoning amendments. We think it would be a grievous error to the council, and we urge you tonight to either table the vote or vote without the camp provisions. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Favor?
Aye.
Have a motion, a resolution adopting local law number 1 of 2021.
I move to go to executive session.
Okay.
Second.
Possible litigation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So everyone has to leave the office.
We're gonna go to executive session. I know.
You can't be in the driveway. You can be in the passenger.
Oh, okay. We got this through.
We still have to go back to regular petitions first.
Yep.
Like regular petitions, we have to finish petitions.
Gotta finish
All right,
petitions.
so at this point, we want to finish up the regular, not the regular, but additional petitioners that had any concerns. If you have any questions, step up and, you know, answer them.
Hello. My name is Kate Hexton, and I am just gonna go off of a little bit what Tom was saying about how we were told by you guys to like report things and call and take evidence. And on July 28th, I called Robin Coleman about an issue on the 3rd floor of Mr. Coons' property. She never got back to me. I left a message. So on August 11th, I put in a formal complaint to Terry. And the same day, it was acknowledged that you were gonna look into it and see why she hadn't called me back. On September 24th, I came to your office and we spoke briefly about everything that was going on. And I had asked you then, you know, what was going on with the 3rd floor with Robin. And you said it wasn't your job and that I should ask Robin, but I did ask Robin and she never got back to me. And when I got the letter about my fence, and I tried to call and talk to people, and I showed up and I was trying to talk to people, everyone seems to be like hot potatoing the responsibility on who I should speak to and whose department it was, and you know, oh, you have to go upstairs and talk to the enforcer people, Robin and what was the yeah, Frank. Right, and so Frank wasn't here, and Robin said, well, I don't know, and I'm like, well, do you not know the same laws as he does, or? But so nobody wanted to touch it. I understand that there have been allowances and things were overlooked and things were made a lot easier for Phil. And I get that compared to Phil, I'm nobody. I'm just, you know, somebody who worked in this town and lives here and my vote counts here and Phil doesn't. So by allowing him to get away with all of the things that he's gotten away with just in this last year alone, you allowed him to steamroll voters in this town. He can't vote here, but we can. Like, you're supposed to be for your people, and we're your people. And every single neighbor that surrounds this farm has said, we don't want this here. We came in, we listed reasons, we showed proof, we did everything right. And nobody seems to want to cross this dude. On top of you guys just straight up not understanding what this means, we get harassed by these brides. Because I know that somebody had mentioned that they passed this, you know, resolution for these weddings to happen, these last 4 or 8, whatever it was, to happen for the brides. I've been harassed on Facebook. My husband's been harassed in public at a gas station. They drive by our houses, like 9 times a day. This bride is driven by our houses. Multiple days, late at night, just driving by, rolling up on Mr. Graffio's property to yell at him. This is something that we're gonna deal with for years. Because if God forbid somebody's mowing their lawn while someone's getting married, we're gonna get harassed by these brides. The last 2 weddings that were there were so loud. My daughters couldn't sleep. Both of my daughters were up at 3 o'clock in the morning because people are giggling in the parking lot and doing what people do in cars after a wedding. And to be perfectly honest, these are all things that we brought to your attention and that I said. And I get that you guys, it's easy to be detached from this because you don't understand what we're going through, but this is something that we have to live with, and you bend over backwards for someone who doesn't even live here. And he doesn't care, he's selling it, he's leaving, and we're stuck with your decisions and the allowances and the things that you've just let happen. And if anybody in here thinks that this town is gonna do them any favors and listen to them at all, we have hundreds of pages and proof and things and months and months and months of you guys just not listening and not doing your job and not following your own laws. We had a lawyer come in here and say, your own laws are saying that what he's doing is illegal, and yet you're allowing it to happen. We've had to hire a lawyer to tell you your own laws. And I get that it's like a voting year or whatever's happening, and I'm not voting for any of you guys. This is like, and all of my friends, because I worked at Mimi's in town 4 years ago, or 3, however long it was, met tons of people down there, tons of people. And I'm friends with all of them on Facebook. And so all of them know what this town has done and the straight up injustice and unfairness of this whole situation, because it can happen to anybody. As long as you have enough money, you can buy your way into getting whatever you want in this town. And it doesn't matter. Thank you.
You want to submit the complaint, or
Again,
you want to give it to the council?
you want me to submit another complaint?
The statement
Do
you
you
just
have anything
made.
to give me, Peyton?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. Anyone else?
This town will stop in the petitioner's time for the evening, this meeting.
No.
Okay, you ready, guys?
Yeah. Yep.
I have a resolution adopting the local law number 1 of 2021 to be known as the zoning law of the town of Wawarsing, Ulster County, state of New York. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Mr. Briggs makes a motion.
Second.
Roger seconds it. Whereas the town of Wawarsing recognizes that its zoning code requires updating and amending. Whereas the town of Wawarsing created a committee to review the town zoning code enacted in 2019. Whereas said committee presented proposed amendments to the current existing code. Whereas the town of Wawarsing held numerous properly advertised public hearings to review the proposed changes to the town of Wawarsing zoning code. Whereas the town of Wawarsing forwarded the proposed zoning code to Ulster County Planning Board for recommendations. Whereas the town of Wawarsing has submitted the local law to the town of Wawarsing Planning Board. Whereas the town of Wawarsing has given proper notification to adjoining towns and appropriate agencies in accordance with state law. Whereas the Ulster County Planning Board and Town of Wawarsing Planning Board have submitted recommendations to the town board. Whereas the town board has reviewed the proposed law under seeker regulations. Whereas further amendments to the code have been made as a response to matters brought up at the public hearings. Recommendations by Ulster County Planning and Town of Wawarsing. Whereas the Ulster County Planning Board issued a review letter in accordance with New York State GML 239M. Whereas the town of Wawarsing has resubmitted the local law with amendments subsequent to the first submission to the Ulster County Planning Board, and over 30 days have elapsed, but the town board has yet to receive any comments. And whereas the town board members have the final version of the proposed amendments, local law number 1, for a period in excess of 8 days required by law. Whereas required by general municipal law, and where the town board acts contrary to any comments set forth in County GML review, the town board in adopting anything that is contrary to the town can only do so by a majority +1. Whereas the town board acknowledges that additional zoning amendments may be appropriate and will continue to evaluate the zoning by reconvening the zoning review committee in November of this year. Therefore, Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Wawarsing hereby finds that there's no adverse environmental impacts of the passage of the local law number 1, amending the town zoning code, and issues a negative declaration in accordance with 6 NYCRR 617, and be it further resolved that the county planning board's comments were reviewed by the town board. The Part 1 EAF was completed in accordance with the instructions set forth on the full EAF form pertaining to the adoption of a zoning amendment. The Neville Resort application is a separate action which would require the PRRD zone, which already exists, to be applied to the newly created red zone, and is subject to its own specific seeker review. The existing PRRD regulations have been restored, and any future amendments to the PRRD regulations will be made by the separate local law, and that the seeker review of these amendments will be done in conjunction with any application for the former Neville property. Regarding affordable housing, the purpose of the zoning amendments were to address specific land uses set forth in the zoning moratorium, and it is beyond the scope of the current effort to update the affordable housing provisions. This will be undertaken as the scope of the current effort to update the affordable housing. This will be undertaken as a separate review. With regard to design guidelines, the town is in agreement that the applicant demonstrate why a guideline cannot be met, and waiver provision had been added to the zoning map or zoning law. As per GML references, the zoning law makes reference to the general municipal law review as required, and is not necessary to the reference of the Ulster County Code. As the zoning chapter indicates, all applicable rules and regulations of other jurisdictions will be adhered to. With regard to the zoning map, the geographic information system files will be transmitted to the county for its use. With regard to housing, the red, RED, and PRD zones, the red and PRD are non-residential zones. And housing is available within the village, hamlets, and other areas with the unincorporated area of the town of Wawarsing for such use. Thus, no changes are to be made to these provisions. It is hereby further resolved that requested modifications regarding seeker affordability, Ulster County Planning Board referral process, and the red zone are hereby overruled. It is further resolved that the town board hereby rescinds the town of Wawarsing Code Chapter number 112 and replaces it in its entirety with the annexed local law number 1. The question of the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote on a roll call, which resulted as. Mr. Briggs, roll call vote.
I'm going to be voting yes. However, as part of that, as you read, reconvening the zoning commission or group of people that are going to be looking at that. I'm hoping that the folks involved with the camps will grant us 30 days to show good faith that we will reconvene that, and we'll hopefully work with us. I think it's important that we get some of the other things covered, and if not, you're going to do what you're going to do, and I haven't been mugged lately, so I don't like a gun held to my head, but I would also ask that you give us 30 days. I think that's fair. And also realize that we've been having public hearings on this zoning issue for a year. And, so it's not like it was done in secret. We do advertise that in the local newspaper. And so everybody has the right to attend our meetings and or to have input on that. So I will be voting yes.
Mr. Casalino.
I likewise will be voting yes, and again, wish that the information that was brought to us tonight and at previous meetings and at the public has made to us. I want the public to understand that we take their concerns seriously, and as a result of the provisions that Mr. Houck read, this is the reason why I will be voting yes tonight.
Roger?
Yes.
Cassie?
I also am voting yes, and look forward to a speedy resolution to the conflicts that arose today.
Yes, I'll be voting yes, and as the resolution states, we acknowledge additional zoning amendments may be appropriate and will continue to evaluate the zoning by reconvening in November. There was some other in the public forum tonight. There was questions about the event law. We hadn't done the Airbnb because we were going to do that after we had passed the Airbnb. After we passed this law, we were going to go into the Airbnb law. The county, I believe, has that law. The village of Ellenville has that law. So we were going to follow the lead of the village and the county in that regard. But the board is together in unison to work out any of the issues that arise from the questions about this law. So I'm voting yes. So the motions are carried. The motion is carried as a resolution.
Tommy Morton doesn't want to stay around. Tommy Morton came in just forever.
Do that?
Sure.
So, okay, good.
Next.
Okay, are we ready for the next
Next
resolution?
resolution, let's go.
All right, at this time, we're doing the Senate resolution, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Town of Wawarsing Town Board by resolution approves to set the medical insurance buyout for all regular employees who are not a member of the clerical union and elected officials who are eligible to 30% of the annual MVP premium for the coverage the employee is eligible for in the year of 2022. It's a resolution.
I'll move it.
Second.
TJ makes a motion, Roger seconds it. It's a roll call vote. Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Roger?
Yes.
Cassie?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That resolution is carried. Resolution 2000, what's the number?
We never put the numbers.
Okay. You'll assign the number.
I'll
Okay.
assign the
Mystery.
The Wawarsing Town Board by resolution authorizes the execution of the solicitation for a request for proposal of the Wawarsing Water District local law distribution identified as WWD, Wawarsing Water District, BID -09. It's a roll call vote.
Second.
TJ makes the motion, Roger seconds. It's,
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Roger?
Yes.
Cassie?
Aye.
And I vote aye. There's no budget bonds?
No.
Correct. Approved bills as audited. We have 3 signatures.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town board to approve the assessor report, the building department, the justice department, the highway department, the town clerk, the maintenance department, the youth commission, the dog control officer, and the supervisor's report.
I'll move
That would be-
numbers 3 through 11 as one.
Second.
TJ makes the motion, Roger seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held on Thursday, November 4th at 6 p.m. in the town hall court. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive input from the public regarding the town of Wawarsing's 2022 budget and set the salaries for the following elected officials: town supervisor, town board, highway superintendent, and town clerk. Have a motion?
Move it. Second.
TJ makes a motion, Roger seconds it. All in favor?
May I, as I vote aye, I'm going to repeat something I said earlier, and that is, again, it's a public hearing. It's the time for the public to come give input on the budget. We have public hearings just about every month, and then people come up with, oh, I didn't know anything about anything. It's in our local newspaper as a legal notice, and, I don't think, maybe some of the public would like us to send everybody a postcard saying that there's a public hearing, but I don't think they'd like their tax bill when we did that. So again, everybody's interested in everything, but if you want to be in the game, you gotta play the game.
We've
also posted
improved
online.
our IT
Okay.
system this year.
So-
With doing, the Facebook and the
Yep.
website,
Posted on the website.
Channel 23.
It's there.
All those things are on that, so there's
Yep.
a lot of avenues between the newspapers and the
Yep.
the meetings itself, Channel 23, and
All the meetings on Channel 20 and the town YouTube channel.
Correct.
So,
Thank you for that, Mr. Briggs. 13. Town board authorized the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held on Thursday, November 4th, 2021 at 7:05 in the town hall court clerk. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive input from the public regarding New York State Office of Community Renewal, Community Development Block, or CDBG, 1215 PR 158-19.
move it.
Second.
TJ makes the motion, Roger seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. The town board to approve the September 21 2021 invoice from Atlantic Testing Laboratories in the amount of $1,574.50 for Wawarsing Water District.
I'll move it.
Second.
That's Cassie making the motion, TJ seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Town Board to approve payment application number 1 in the amount of $175,750 to Aventus Construction Company, Inc. for the Wawarsing Water District Water Treatment Facility and Well Field Plumbing.
I'll move it.
Second.
Cassie makes that motion, Paul seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Town Board to approve invoice number 11287 in the amount of $112,317.40 to H. Ulsterhout Excavating, Inc. for the Highway Department salt shed.
Move it.
Second.
Roger makes a motion, Paul seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Town Board to approve the proposal in the amount of $21,888.15 from Coister Associates, Inc. for the purpose of an installation of a torque arm overload assembly, rake assembly, and rake plate and chain with connecting links for the Napanock sewer plant.
I'll move it.
Second.
Cassie makes a motion, Paul seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Town Board to authorize the supervisor to execute the agreement between Underwater Solutions, Inc. and the town of Wawarsing for the repair to support cable pad-eyed on the dock bill valve for the 278,000-gallon Aquastore water storage tank in the amount of $4,679.
I'll move it.
Second.
Cassie makes a motion, TJ seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
I'm going to skip 19.
We're skipping 19 tonight. Number 20, Town Board to authorize the supervisor to execute change order number 1 for contract TWA 211 CDBG 1215 PR 158-19 to increase the contract amount by $15,000 to measure, furnish, and install manhole inserts to further reduce inflow during wet weather events, resulting in a revised contract value of $359,845.
I'll move it.
Second.
Cassie makes a motion, Paul seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Town Board to authorize the supervisor to execute change order number 2 for contract TWA 211 CDBG 1215 PR 158-19 to increase the contract value by $9,000 due to the utilization of specialty cleaning equipment during the sewer cleaning and inspection phase and for the owner requested pump out of pump stations, resulting in a revised contract value of $368,845.
I'll move it.
Cassie is spending money again.
But we have really good
Cassie makes
sewers.
the motion and Roger seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
And Steve's smiling up there.
Yes, he is.
One more.
Town Board authorized the supervisor to execute change order number 3 for contract TWA 211 CDBG 1215 PR 158-19 to increase the contract value by $202,740. Include a lateral connection repair in lieu of rehabilitation via chemical grouting and establishing a unit price for same, resulting in a revised contract value of $571,585.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Cassie makes a motion, Paul seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion's carried. Okay, we're not doing number 23, correct, Jackie?
No.
Okay, so at this point, we have the highway superintendent.
I'm good for the night.
We have Mr. Briggs.
Before I get into concerns, I'd move to rescind resolution number 38 of October 7th, and I will replace that with, and I'll read the resolution of Town Board of the Town of Wawarsing.
Separate vote to take one away?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so then I'll move to,
Need a second and vote on it?
okay.
Yeah. Second.
So TJ makes a motion, Cassie seconds it.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then I'd move the resolution of the Town Board of the Town of Wawarsing regarding property determined to be dangerous to public health, safety, appearance, or welfare, said property owned by Woodridge LLC and located at 23 Lundy Road, Wawarsing, in the Town of Wawarsing, aka Section 75.18, Block 1, Lot 1. The reason for the change is that we had a number wrong in the original resolution. So the resolution as read is now corrected.
All right, so I guess that's a
That's a roll call.
Second.
roll call.
I'll second that.
Yes, vote is yes. Paul?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Cassie? And I vote yes. That resolution is passed.
Okay, now, into concerns. Breakfast for dinner is at Napanock Firehouse on Saturday. It's a fundraiser for the 4th of July. I'm sure we all love the 4th of July parade and everything that goes on, the fireworks. So come out, participate. Even if you don't like breakfast for dinner, just come out and put $5 in the till and say thank you, and we'll see you July 4th. So, do that. Time change will be up. Actually, it's November 6th, so just as a reminder, as I did last time, and I'll do it again in November, change out your battery, smoke, and carbon monoxide detectors. As of, I believe it was April of this year, smoke and carbon monoxide, any new ones you buy are now sealed 10-year units. So they are expensive. They're about $45-50. Actually, I think Ace has them on sale this month. It's like $44, but believe me, it'll save your life. You can't smell or detect CO, so it'll save your life. So just be careful. With those types of things. It's also that time of year is people are starting to use wood stoves. Make sure your chimney is clean. If you're putting on your boiler, make sure that's been cleaned, or and so on and so forth. EMS, we've got a tremendous fire EMS group of men and women in this community and surrounding communities, and I love them all. I just don't want to see any of them at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, it's that time of year. Let's be careful. Let's also be careful with Halloween. It will be a little lighter because the time changes later, but let's just be careful out there, okay? So, and that's it.
Thank you. TJ? Roger?
Just real quick, I want to remind everybody, as you might have heard, that election is coming up this Saturday, starts early election. It's up to everybody to get out there and vote. Meet the candidates, do whatever you need to do to get out and vote. Voting is one of the basics, foundations of this country, and when you don't exercise that right, you've given up something that people have fought and lost their lives for. Voting is the most important thing you can do in this country. Early voting starts this Saturday at the library. Get out there and vote. That's all I got.
Paul Tozzolino.
Okay, a couple of things. Just to add on to what TJ just said, those smoke and CO detectors are supposed to be 10-year detectors. They don't always last 10 years. If they start making noise or doing things, even if it's not anything close to 10 years, replace them, because you don't want to have the consequences of not having a good smoke and CO detector in your house. On a bright note, TJ talked also about Halloween. There is actually a trunk or treat that's being held at the Ellenville School parking lot. That's a trunk or treat that's being hosted by a combination of the town and the Noonday Committee and the school. I would highly encourage parents, businesses to participate in that trunk or treat. It was a fun event that we did a number of years ago. Basically, what it does is it allows you to decorate your trunk or your car or something like that, and they all get lined up in the school parking lot, and then the kids can have a nice, fun, safe Halloween in the Ellenville School parking lot. And it was a great event a couple years ago when we had it, and we hope it is with nice weather and a great event this year as well.
5 to 7.
5 to 7 p.m. Thank you, Roger. So on Halloween night, 5 to 7 p.m. And that's all I've got.
Yes. Cassie?
Okay. I have a couple things. I'm so excited to tell everybody that every single easement has been signed.
Everyone?
Everyone
for the water district.
The easements are done. And I thank everybody that helped me get them, and all the residents who went out of their way to come to town hall or meet us at a pop-up. I really appreciate it. And a special thanks to Bill Collier for getting the last one. I appreciate that.
These are the easements for the private roads.
For the private roads, yep.
The water line down private roads.
Right.
We're clear to go on the Wawarsing Water District.
Yep. And then I have 63 temporary licenses that are still out there. Feel free to come to town hall 8 to 4. see one of the ladies that have a stamp, find me, I'll get you all set up. Come
Cassie,
by.
explain what those are again.
The temporary license gives the contractor permission to come on your property and actually hook up the water. If you don't sign your temporary license, then we can't come on your property. It's just one of those rules that we have. So I have 63 of those outstanding. So come see me. I also want to remind people we're doing our autumn decorating contest and we're getting together some really cool prizes, which I'll be announcing at our next meeting. And my final thing is the weather's changing, and everybody mentioned that you know, fire and clean your chimneys, do your furnace. If you are having trouble getting heat this winter, the heat application process up on October 1st and is good through March 15th. There's you can contact Kingston Social Services, and they will set you up, or there's a link online that you can get. But if anybody needs that information, I have it on my desk. They come see me, and I'll do what I can to help them get hooked up with heating assistance. I don't want anybody to be cold this year because there's no reason for it. There's a lot of funding available just because of the COVID money that's available. So please reach out if you need help. And I think that covers everything I've got. Terry, what you got?
Well, I'd like Paul to, discuss in the workshop tonight. We discussed broadband. So can you kind of throw out some conversation about?
You talked about satellites and
About the hotspots.
Yeah, I guess the
Keep
one.
it to 15 minutes.
Well, no, I won't even do that. The one thing that we did talk in the workshop that Terry's discussing is we're investigating providing hotspots for various parts of the community, and it would include the town parks. So we've got actually the Littman Park. That's probably the top priority one to start this project. I would like input from members of the community as to other public areas that you think Wi-Fi hotspots would be of value. We have got access to funding that's called ARP funding, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for.
American Rescue Funding?
American Rescue Relief Funding, I think it is, exactly. So we're looking at using some of that funding, which the government, state and I guess federal government has made available to us to open and extend Wi-Fi hotspots to various parts of the community, a lot of our open spaces, as I said, the parks and other locations like that. So please, if you've got any other ideas, please get in touch with me, let me know, because we're formulating a list as to the areas that we'd like to do that with. And I guess I'll turn it back to Terry.
Thank you.
Salt shed we're going to be pouring concrete on Monday.
Yep.
So that's good news.
Yes, sir.
The green rebar arrived.
It's all hanging.
There was an issue with the rebar because it was this green rebar that was a little difficult to get delivered. As everyone knows, there's some delays. I was down in Virginia Beach visiting my brother on Labor Day weekend, and we went just before over the bridge. We stopped on the shoreline there, and it was about 7 cargo tankers waiting to get into Newport. So obviously that's something the entire country and world has to deal with. But I'm glad that the salt shed's this is a big step.
And they poured the 209 bridge too, I saw.
Yes, they did, yep.
They poured the concrete and is it doing the asphalt?
So they're putting the Tony says.
Putting the blacktop on now.
So that's gonna be, I think we're gonna start clapping when that's completely finished too, because that does create a log jam.
Yep.
And then the log jam will just be the Wawarsing Water District, which will be.
That's almost done.
Which will be done in the next year. So I'd like to thank the board over the last term during this administration to really get that Wawarsing Water District with the DEP online and moving, and because it actually was probably started in 2012, but we really moved up and jump started it in 2018, and I appreciate everyone's assistance with that. The budget, we had a budget meeting last week. Last year's budget was 0.13, and this year we're targeting a 0% increase, somewhere in that category. So again, I believe we're always trying to keep the taxes down and provide the best services we get. I guess that's really the plan that we're supposed to do. And thank everybody for their cooperation. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
All in favor?
Motion.
Aye.
Seconds, all in favor?
Hi.